All right, welcome back to another mock draft reaction video. These are very fun. I enjoy them a lot. I like making my own mock drafts, but let's be honest, it's more fun to be in the judging seat than it is to be the guy making the mock draft and getting judged. So I do both. What we're going to do today is a little bit of an interesting one. So I'm going to be reviewing a mock draft by two guys on this platform, Brett Kollmann and Bengal, two great YouTubers. Brett Kollmann, I've kind of talked about as kind of the godfather of film studies on YouTube. I'm not sure if he was the first, but he's certainly the first that I noticed doing it, and probably the best. I would say the best. And also Bengal, who really smart guy as well, kind of known for being like a Madden YouTuber, but he does a lot more than just that, I feel like, and is really smart guy as well. So, I like to, when I look at these mock draft reviews, not just look at trash ones, but try to find like actual good mock drafts, because it's hard to make a good mock draft. And so we're not going to watch the whole video. What we're going to do is just sort of, I'll show it on the screen, just kind of skip ahead, and I'm just going to give my reaction. If you want to hear their reasoning for it, then you click their video and you watch that. That's kind of the way I figured, hopefully get some clicks on their channel as well. Also, of course, make sure you go and always hit the thumbs up button. Always important. Let's get into it. So where do we think they're going to go first overall? It's got to be Hutchinson, right? That's what we would assume. There's an ad there. Sorry, skipping past the ad. Number one, yeah, Hutchinson. This is going to be number one on most mock drafts. It should be number one on every mock draft, in my opinion. Not really too much of a hot take, but sometimes the correct take is not the hot one. Let's skip ahead now to Malik Willis at number 2 overall. Okay, interesting. So I believe so. I watched a little bit of this before I decided to do my own mock draft review on it. I believe, if I remember correctly, Bengal is the one doing the odds and Kollmann is doing the evens. So Brett Kollmann going with Malik Willis at number 2. I really don't hate this at all. I know that some Lions fans are, you want a stud, you want to make sure you get a good player, but the quarterback is just so important that taking that chance on Malik Willis, in my opinion, it's just worth it. It's worth the risk. Yes, there is an inherent risk there. He is not a can't miss prospect, but he is a good prospect, I think, at least a quality prospect. And listen, the reality is, whether you're getting him at 2 or 32, the next couple of years is going to solely rely on which quarterback you get. So might as well just take take the risk factor of missing out on the guy you want out of the equation. I don't hate this decision whatsoever. Let's move on now. Going over here, okay, we're still on number 2. I'll skip ahead, might get a few picks in there. Nope, still just one. Akeem Ikwonu here. Well, this is interesting. I think one of my previous mock drafts had him falling all the way to 13, I think that was one of my weird ones or whatever, but he fell to 13, and that totally makes sense because, getting him at 3, I don't hate that logic at all. Again, there is Tunsil going to go at any point? That's always potentially something that could happen. And there's the other aspect of, like, it might just be better to have Ikwonu at guard. You can move Titus Howard out to tackle where he's played better. So that could really help bolster that offensive line. There is a school of thought of the offensive line is what you want to build around. You build around you build from the front to the back. I'm not sure if I fully agree with that philosophy, but it is a philosophy. And if you are a believer in that philosophy, getting a good quality offensive lineman here at number 3, yeah, I get that. Number 4, Drake London to the Jets. Again, bit of a reach here. I've seen this a couple of times. I like London better at 10, and I think he'll fall to 10, so I don't think you need to get him here. I think you can wait. In worst case scenario, he does get selected earlier, but you still have other good receivers on the board. But I do love the fit, and I think he would help the Jets out a lot. Again, the idea of Zach Wilson throwing up jump balls to Drake London is very exciting. So I get it. I just think that you can maybe go after get a better player at 4 than you would at 10 and still get Drake London at 10. I think that's a very real option, which is why I'd probably wait. But again, I get the logic behind it. Most mock drafts have Drake London going to the Jets to some degree. Okay, so a couple of picks here as I've skipped ahead. A tackle run, Evan Neal at 5. Giants need offensive line. I like this pick. And then Charles Cross at 6. This is definitely an interesting dilemma for the Panthers. I keep saying I think the Panthers are going to go quarterback, but this probably is the correct move. Getting a tackle here at number 6, where they need a tackle. I mean, they just need offensive line help. The issue with the Panthers, of course, is that they don't have any picks for, like, I think this is their only, not only single digit pick, but double digit pick. The next pick they have is in the hundreds. So if I remember correctly, so that's the issue with the Panthers. And that's kind of why they really have to nail that number 6 overall pick, which is why many have them going quarterback. But, it would help them punt on quarterback. I don't hate that move either. Number 7, Kayvon Thibodeau to the Giants at 7. So interesting. The edges kind of fall a little bit. Trayvon Walker has fallen in this draft, and Thibodeau has fallen. Typically, you see a mock draft where one of those two guys ends up falling. In this mock draft, both of those two guys are falling here a little bit. I mean, 7's still a high pick. We saw Penei Sewell get picked at 7 last year, and he was a very hyped up prospect. But still, it's interesting. I definitely think this is a good move for the Giants. Like, just pick best player available. You have too many holes to worry about need too much, and you already kind of drafted for need a little bit with Evan Neal. So go out, get Thibodeau. He's probably best player available, maybe the safest pick available too at this point. So I have no issue with this as well. Good mock draft so far, 7 through 7 picks. I have no real issue. Okay, well, now we got a couple issues, but again, issues I know are coming. Trayvon Walker and Jermaine Johnson, a couple of edge picks going here. I'm just not as high on either of those two guys. I think they're more projection picks. But again, to understand the logic, if you are a believer in getting the best athlete and saying, hey, maybe it won't work out year 1, but it will work out in the future, these are two teams that can afford to take sort of developmental guys a little bit. And Johnson's not as much of a developmental guy as Walker is. Again, most people are higher on Johnson than I am. Most people are higher on Walker than I am. So maybe I'm wrong. But these are two good fits, I would say. I think this would help, both of those two guys. I think Johnson and Walker would probably feel good about going there. To kind of, the team can sort of just do what they can to help that out. And again, for the Falcons, this is kind of where I'm a little bit more okay with taking Walker. Some mock drafts have him going first overall. I think that's insane because they're just better prospects. But we're at the point where there isn't a lot of these can't miss prospects other than the corners still left available. So that's kind of why I understand it a little bit more. So moving on to number 10, the sauce boss himself, Ahmad Gardner. This is again, it's kind of funny. This has happened a couple of times where I keep saying draft Sauce Gardner at 4 and Drake London at 10. And on a couple of mock drafts, I've seen Drake London go at 4 and Sauce Gardner go at 10. So at the end of the day, you're getting the two guys that I would select for the Jets, just in different orders. You're getting the same value back. So like this pick, the Jets could use a corner. I think this is definitely a smart move here. Moving on a little bit more. So who does the Washington football team take? Garrett Wilson. That's definitely interesting. And Washington is in such a weird spot where it's like, they don't really need anything. They don't have like a huge area of need, in my opinion. I've been going Devin Lloyd with them a few times just because I think Devin Lloyd's really good and would fit that scheme well. But I don't hate Garrett Wilson here. Again, I'm a little bit lower on Wilson than others. Wide receiver, a notoriously difficult position to evaluate, though, so I could be wrong on that. Because again, it's just hard. Like projecting wide receiver value, it's just very difficult. It's not that common that the top guys end up being the best guys. It happens, but last year it happened, but that doesn't happen every year. However, again, Washington kind of a team that could take a big swing there. I don't think they need a receiver, but they could use one. And I'm kind of a believer in you should never let a draft go by where you don't draft at least one wide receiver. So getting Garrett Wilson here, I have no issue with that. Going over a couple of picks later. So Derek Stingley to the Vikings at 12. I'm sure the Vikings would be very excited if Stingley fell to them because, Stingley is good. And yes, there are some issues. Yes, it is a bit of a projection. But again, corner is another position where it's more difficult to evaluate than, say, offensive or defensive line play. That's part of why offensive and defensive linemen go so early in the draft. Is because of, they tend to be easier to evaluate. So getting Stingley here at 12, the Vikings could use a corner, and this could really help them out a lot. And then Kyle Hamilton at 13 to the Texans. Again, I'm lower on Hamilton than a lot of other people are, but this is where I'm warm on the idea to pick him. There's still other guys I'd rather have personally if I'm a Texans fan than Kyle Hamilton, even at 13. But it's a lot more of a like, okay, this is where you can kind of take a swing and see what happens. Whereas typically, I think in certain scenarios, like for example, if Hamilton went number 3, I think feel like there's safer bets there and safer bets in more important positions as well. But at 13, at the very least, again, with the Texans, they can kind of see how it works. Maybe they could just have him play linebacker there, which would actually be a pretty good fit in that Lovey cover two scheme. I've always kind of been a believer, and I think Hamilton's more of a linebacker. I don't love him if he's just a pure safety in that cover two scheme that much, but that's just me because I don't think again, people view him differently than I view him. So that's maybe a me thing, not a Brett and a Bengal thing. Let's move on again. Few minutes later, okay, they're still deciding. Few minutes later, okay, we got a couple. Trent McDuffie to the Ravens, something I've seen a lot. Ravens could use a corner because, again, who knows how well Marcus Peters is going to bounce back. And the Ravens are definitely from the school of thought of you build from the back to the front, which is, in my opinion, the correct way to view that stuff. So if you're going to build from the back to the front, you need good corners. Trent McDuffie's a good corner, so no real issue there. And Jameson Williams, my wide receiver number one, their third wide receiver coming off the board here. Jameson Williams going 15th overall to the Eagles. I like it. I think they could really use another wide receiver. The only interesting thing is, I guess you could maybe argue with Williams. He's kind of similar to Devonta Smith. And so that's kind of the one area where I would be a little bit maybe you'd want to get somewhat more of a different guy, but I don't know. I think he's the best player available. I would take him at 15. I think this is the correct pick. Okay, so let's now see where the Saints go. Skipping ahead, Christian Watson. Well, that's a really they're high on Christian Watson. I don't see him going as high there. Also, a lot of first round wide receivers here going, and maybe not the typical guys either. So very interesting there. But I get the idea with Christian Watson, and the Saints have had a history of. I feel like they're pretty good developmental wise. So getting someone like Watson, who is kind of this great athlete, and the question is, there's DK Metcalf comparisons. Getting him here, they need a wide receiver. I get the logic behind it. Maybe not the wide receiver I would have chosen personally, but I do get the logic behind it. And then Trevor Penning here at 17. Interesting going tackle. A lot of people have been going Jordan Davis here, but I don't hate this at all. They could use a tackle. I have been going wide receiver here a lot with the Chargers because I think that's an interesting fit, but they need a tackle. So Trevor Penning, who I like as a player, I think he's good, guy who has production in college. That's one of the big things you want is someone who produces, and he produces. So that tends to translate well to the NFL. They could use a tackle. I think the only argument is is this their biggest need? But the way I view it, it's okay, I think they could use a receiver. You can get a receiver in round 2, or I guess they don't have a round 2 pick, but you can get a receiver later on in the draft. And also, you can get defensive linemen later on in the draft, or even still through free agency. Whereas, they have addressed that defensive line. They could still use an interior guy. They could still use Jordan Davis. But the question is, what's easier to fill up? That the weakness in the defensive line role or getting another tackle? I get this logic. I don't hate this whatsoever. You could go Jordan Davis, but I kind of like this Penning pick. That's an interesting one I hadn't thought of, but I like that. That's smart. Jordan Davis goes the next pick to the Eagles. The Eagles love defensive linemen, so I get it. I mean, this is what the Eagles do, right? They love just a ton of different defensive linemen who can do different things. Jordan Davis would fit in that defensive line beautifully. Him next to Fletcher Cox, I mean, that would just be unfair. So that's another interesting one I haven't seen too much because typically people are saying linebacker, wide receiver. That's what I've been doing a lot. I kind of like that. Maybe in hindsight, I've done my mock drafts wrong a little bit because that's smart. I'm a big fan of that. So yeah, that's fun. All right, let's move on further here. Devontae Wyatt, number 19. Personally, I like Wyatt better than Davis, so I would have picked him earlier. Again, kind of a thing where is that their biggest need? I don't know. I mean, a lot of people have been mocking tackle to the Saints here, but at the same time, okay, well, Penning is gone. So what do? So just getting best player available, Devontae Wyatt. Yeah, why not? That's a good pick. I don't hate that at all. That's very fascinating. Again, sometimes there's logic behind going best player available. So let's see. All right, a few picks off the board. Arnold Ebiketie. I mean, I really wish I could get that name right. I keep forgetting how to pronounce it. Ebiketie, I believe, is how you say it. For the Steelers, okay, wait a second. This is I was trying to get the name right. I didn't see the logo there. That's a surprise because they don't need a edge rusher by any means, but the positional value I like. I think that's good. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is 20th overall for Ebiketie, I'm fine with. I think he's really good. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. I saw a stat that he actually, the least amount of his pressures came from like cleanup pressures than anybody else in the NFL. So basically, or in college, I mean. So basically, he's earning his pressures. He's not getting fluky pressures. He's really good. He gets a lot of production, really talented player. At least, especially in that pass rush situation. And listen, you can use 3 pass rushers. That's something that happens. That happened when Bud Dupree was still there. So that is something you can do. I don't hate the selection. There is reason to get excited about it. I just think to have too many other big needs. So I wouldn't do it personally. That's kind of how I feel about it. Andrew Booth to the Patriots at 21. That makes sense. Andrew Booth is someone who, Patriots could use a corner. So sure, I understand that. That makes perfect sense. And the Packers going George Pickens here. Again, a couple of wide receivers. I'm like, really, you haven't gone yet? That's surprising. But I like George Pickens a lot. I think Pickens is a really unique player and could be a sleeper in this draft. Again, I'm not mad at this selection. I actually kind of like it. I'm sure the Chris Olave fans will not be a huge fan of this one, but I don't hate it whatsoever. I think it's a good, smart pick here. The only thing you can maybe nitpick is could they have gotten him later? That's the only issue I have. But getting him, it helps their team out for sure. I guess the other question you could have is that too much of a risk here going out and getting I guess do you want more of a sure thing if you're Green Bay because you're trying to be competitive right now? That's the other argument. But I like the pick. Boye Mafe, getting an edge guy for the Cardinals. That's not the end of the world. I've been giving Tyler Linderbaum to the Cardinals in most of my mock drafts because I think that is a kind of a better fit, but I really like Linderbaum, so that's why. But again, helping out the defensive linemen. I'm not as crazy on Mafe as some other people are, but again, he's solid. He's fine. So 23 here. I don't have a huge issue with that. Should probably be pretty good. Couple more. Zion Johnson to the Cowboys. I like that. That makes sense. If Zion Johnson does fall there, I wouldn't be shocked at all if they go there, especially because that was kind of a weird spot where all of their needs typically aren't available at this spot. So they might be a trade up or trade down candidate. But if Zion's there, they could use a guard because Connor Williams left. So that makes sense. And Khair Elam, that's interesting. Again, the Bills are in such a, the Bills can just pick best player available. They're in such a luxury pick spot. They don't need anybody, really. I like Elam. I think he's really good. So I'm really high on him. So the only real issue I have with him is Florida corners seemingly always suck. That's the issue, which isn't fair to put on him. All right. Well, we have a surprise at 26. Zach Tom, offensive tackle. I'm going to be honest. I don't know a ton about Zach Tom. So, listen, so this is an even number. So this is Brett Kollmann's pick. Listen, I haven't scouted him that much. So I can't really sit here and say, what are you doing? Because maybe there's actually some logic here. What I can sit here and say is he's not going in the first round. So don't draft him in the first round. Right. And listen, I've had this happen before where I fall in love with prospects that are later round picks and say they should be a first round talent. And for all I know, that this could be true. So it's not the pick I would make. I'll say that. I think this is a bit of a reach. But again, Tennessee is kind of in a weird spot where what's the best value they can get here? They're not in the worst position to do a reach. So if you're a big believer in Zach Tom, I guess you can make the selection, just not the one that I would make. But hey, I'm sure I have in my mock drafts, I have made picks that these guys would laugh at. So so be it. Number 27, Kenyon Green. I'm just not a huge fan of Green. I'm just not. I don't think he's as good as other people think he is. He didn't have the production in college for me to feel comfortable drafting him in the first round. But the Buccaneers could use a guard, so that's the reason behind it. As a Buccaneers fan, I hope this does not happen, but I do see the logic behind it. Let's move on. A couple more picks now. Sky Moore to a couple of wide receivers. So hey, Packers feel pretty good about how this went, and so did the Chiefs. Packers getting Sky Moore. So the Packers doubling down on receiver, none of which Chris Olave. But I like Sky Moore in that scheme. I do. I think that Matt LaFleur scheme with Moore there works. I don't hate this. I really don't. Chris Olave would work there as well. Chris Olave to the Chiefs would be very exciting. I think there's some reasonable concerns to have about Olave. There's probably reasonable concerns to have about every wide receiver that you're going to get from this point on. But you need a wide receiver. You're getting a guy who some are picking in the top 15, getting him at 29. Yeah, sure Chiefs fans aren't too mad about that. Couple of more picks. It looks like this is a 2-round mock draft. I'm just going to do the first round though, because that's what I'm more interested in. So, Roger McKee, Daxton Hill, number 30. I'm not as high on Daxton Hill as others, but 30, that's fine value. I'm not mad at that. Roger McCreary, another guy who I'm not as high on as other people, but I get the logic behind it there. And then 32, I mean, same thing. Treylon Burks. I'm not as high on Treylon Burks as other people are, but I do kind of see some value in getting him at 32 here with the Detroit Lions. Surprised that Devin Lloyd went at number 33. That seems like, he really fell. That would be a great steal for the Jaguars, ending up with Hutchinson and Devin Lloyd. Maybe they're just not as high on the positional value of linebackers. I don't know, but that's fascinating. So, all right, that is the mock draft with Bengal and Brett Kollmann. I thought that was fun. I thought it was a pretty good mock draft. The Zach Tom pick was off the board, but hey, that's kind of what makes mock drafts fun, right? Because people have different opinions on guys. But as a whole, though, I at least got the logic behind every other pick and some really smart ones I thought in there as well that I hadn't really thought of. So that's kind of why I like doing these mock draft reviews. Is it's less about saying, look at this idiot who did this dumb thing, and more about trying to find the smart stuff and trying to find the picks that I hadn't thought of, but once I think about them, actually make a lot of sense. And that's definitely what happened here. So I would say if I'm reviewing the mock draft, I'll give it a pretty good grade. I'll say it was a solid mock draft for sure. Only one pick I really thought was off the wall. So that's what I think. What do you guys think about it? Let me know in the comments below. What were your thoughts on this mock draft? I always love hearing blah, blah. I screwed up my own outro. How do I do that? Let me try that again. Let me know what you thought of this in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.